Welcome on in to the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. That's Cam Beck. That's Tyson Mall. Fellas, how we doing?
Doing better than all those people with their paddles on Saturday.
Did you
those
notice
paddle
that,
people?
all of them had gloves on? Like, come on.
Slivers, bro.
Much. That's too much. Is
Slivers.
It wood? It's wood.
Yeah,
it's
they're
not
wood.
Like, oh,
Those are authentic hazing paddles.
Still,
Yeah.
come on.
No, I kept
Bro.
seeing on Twitter people being like, "What happened to our paddle people? Like, what happened to the paddle student?" Like, and I'm just like,
Nothing to
they
paddle about.
They got benched with Bowman. I don't know what to tell you.
There was one dude that was dressed to the nines. I have
saw
never
that.
seen a more impressive suit. I dapped him up. I said, "Hey, dude, props to you. I hope you've got AC blowing up your butthole or something, because, man, it was hot."
That was the first thing I said. I was like, that dude's got to be dying.
Dude, it
Is it
was
as hot as they were making it out to be in the pregame. They wouldn't shut up. Like on the broadcast, they wouldn't really shut up about how hot it was.
That's all I was talking about all day, was how hot it was.
Oh God,
It was so hot.
They said the turf was. They showed the reading on the temperature gun on the turf, and it was like 147 or something.
And it was
That's
so it was
crazy.
weird. They had
Fast.
different temps, different people with different temps. Like one guy shot it at 153.
I guess saw
So-
that too.
It was all over the place. But regardless, dude, it was hot. So shout out to everybody that was actually outside. I was in the press box, so I was
Shout
fine.
out to Oklahoma State coming out in black helmets too. Like that's a choice in that weather. All right, what's it going to be? 140% humidity? How dark can we
We're
make
rocking
this?
black, boys.
I saw an Oklahoma State fan on Twitter said something like about they saw like 8 or 9 people were like getting worked on by EMTs for heat exhaustion.
Like fans,
Dude,
like
I
in the
buy it.
stands.
Yeah.
like fans.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't think people realize too. Like obviously the turf is hot and those guys are playing, and it's like, but they're also very hydrated and like have
Yeah.
been preparing for this. Like people just chilling in the stands on these metal bleachers in the heat and the sun, probably drunk. Like
Yes.
that's
Mm-hmm.
an emergency, man. Like
Oh yeah.
I don't know if y'all have ever been drunk in the heat. It is not a good time.
It's not. It's
Rough.
not.
Rough. Yeah. And the tailgate scene there at Stillwater, it goes hard.
Did it
They-
live
they
up?
do
Lived up to the hype.
Good for
They
them.
they do a good job out there with the old tailgate scene. So Utah, big win, 22-19. Obviously should have been much bigger than that score margin. But no, it should have
Nah,
been.
it should have been.
I don't know.
Should have
Like,
been.
It should have been, but at the same time, like you're on the road against like a top 15 team and you're holding them to 19 points. I think that's fine. Like like it had to come sometime.
I think it's more like not necessarily more. Utah probably should have scored more points, but it shouldn't have been 19 either.
Right.
I don't know. Like I agree. Like,
Either way.
it's frustrating that they got to 19, but like
Yeah.
that game was never in doubt. Like there was never a time when Oklahoma State had the ball and could go up like after halftime. Like
Right.
it was very clearly Utah letting a little bit off the gas at the end there. Like I was saying in the Discord for people who are members in our Utah and Oklahoma State game day thread, like I said at halftime, like they're gonna score 2 touchdowns in the second half. They're just going to. It's gonna happen sometime. It only takes a couple of plays. And like you can't expect to to do this type of thing on the road and not let like home teams get in the end zone. It just happens. And so like
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we've seen Utah's defense do extraordinary things, but I mean I wasn't surprised to see them get down and get into the end zone a couple times. Having that last touchdown buffer obviously became crucial. And like glad Utah didn't completely take it off the gas on offense.
I don't know that we're making enough of that defensive performance because
Oh,
it
oh my
was impressive. But Elliot sent me a text and he was like, that is one of the greatest defensive performances I've seen. Like,
They had 6 or like something like 6 drives that had 6 or fewer yards. Something like 2 drives that had negative yards. You don't do that to teams in their own house. That just doesn't happen. And like
No.
again, this is not a slouch on offense. This is a good offensive team.
462 yards on average coming into this game.
It's hard to overstate what the defense did, and that's why the 19 points aren't really don't have me worried.
Yeah.
They won that game. They won that game. No matter how many points ended up being on the board.
Right.
If Utah wouldn't have had 22 points, I'm confident that Oklahoma State doesn't get 19 points, if that makes sense. Utah was clearly in control enough that whole game on defense that if they didn't have that touchdown buffer, Oklahoma State doesn't get into the end zone one more time.
The biggest thing for me too, especially like that defensive performance, they did it with one sack. Like you'd think like that big of a defensive performance, like they're getting in the backfield, like getting sacks and everything. But I mean, Oklahoma State did a good job of getting the ball out. You have one sack, and to play that good a defense without a boatload of
your
sacks,
strength. That's
what
your
Utah
strength
does.
as a defensive unit. Yeah.
And on the other hand, though, Utah got a sack. That's a thing that 3 teams before this can't say. And that like doesn't happen a lot to Oklahoma State.
And that's like the point of their offensive attack is getting the ball out quick. He's taking the snap. It's one step and it's boom. He's throwing it. It's 2.26 seconds. He got it out. That was on average coming into the game. The amount of time that he took from the snap to get the throw off. In this game against Utah, 2.13 seconds. So he was even quicker this weekend against Utah in getting the ball out of his hands. He wanted no part of that Utah defensive pass rush. No part.
It's honestly kind of, maybe Utah runs more horizontal than I've given their receivers ever credit for, or like I don't know offensive scheme enough to talk intelligently about it, but like for how quickly they get rid of the ball, it's remarkable how far downfield their receivers are when they're getting the ball. Like it seems like they find that space at 8 to 12 yards almost every time. It's not like they're catching
on the
run
2-yard
line and trying to turn these into runs. Like these are downfield throws and they are coming out quick. It's just, I don't know, a really, really fun scheme that Oklahoma State runs on that offense. Like I'm certainly glad Utah shut it down and we didn't see a lot of it, but I can see why it's so fun to watch. And like playing against it, I was definitely nervous. It felt like at any time, all someone had to do was get a couple steps of space.
Fun is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 3 and outs on the game. That's tough. And dude, what was
Hurting Scally, am I right?
Damn.
What's so crazy about that is the pace at which they were like, listen to this. So the first possession, 45 seconds. The next 3 and out was 2 minutes. The next 3 and out was 1 minute. The next 3 and out was 42 seconds, 54 seconds, 22 seconds, and 35 seconds. Insane.
It's when you play with that tempo, it's the other edge of that sword. Like you want to know why Utah had 40 plus minutes of possession? That's why. Because Oklahoma State had drives under a minute. You can't do that multiple times a game. You certainly can't have 7 drives that only go 3 plays. It's just not if you're going to play with that kind of tempo. And so having Utah being able to run the ball like they did and just let the air out of that game, like that defense had nothing in the second half.
You could see it. And Tyson, with your background as a fullback, I'd love to get you to chime in on this, but you could see it just as Oklahoma State, you get into that third quarter and the offensive line, they've been generating movement all day. Utah was always like a shoestring away from breaking one in the first half. And then you started to get those 5, 6, 7 yard pops, and they were getting 10-yard pops here and there, but it became more consistent. And then boom, finally Bernard breaks off a 62-yarder. The most incredible hezzy I've ever seen on a football field in Barry Sanders' home, no less.
It was 140 degrees on the field, but that dude was on ice. He went down.
I think Cale Smith needs to retire. He needs to retire after that. I don't make the rules, man. Sorry.
His ankles retired right there. Right there on the field. September 21st, his ankles called it a career.
No, Steve, you're right though. Like you can see it. You can see them get run down. You can see them get tired of getting hit, and it just makes you. It just gives you that little bit extra. Just be like, all right, this. Like you see a guy with his hands on his hips, you're like, oh, I'm burying this guy next play.
And I think the two guys that are embracing that really speak to that that just seem to step up. Michael Mokofisi and
Mhm.
Spencer Fano are doing a remarkable job of just collapsing that right side at times. Like, it's so fun to watch those two just drive guys 6-7 yards. they're just moving them. And dude, Spencer was utilized on a couple of pulls as a encounter and power run plays, and he's looking phenomenal as a run blocker, which that was not his game.
No.
Like coming from high school, he was coming in as an elite pass protector, and so the fact that he's bulked up to the point that he has, where he's now thriving in the run game, it's remarkable. So man, that right side of the line was a lot of fun to watch in this game.
Watching that right side too, it was great because the first guy who would get to Mackay or whoever, but most often Mackay, was getting to him 3 yards downfield. But they had to go around those two on the right side. They couldn't find gaps in between them. They had to run they had to run this kind of like J route around the edge of this fence that was collapsing on top of them. And so like by the time they'd get to Mackay, again, he's 3 yards downfield. They're having to change direction just to get to where he is. And by that time are gassed and he's just running through arm tackles. Like, I'll say too, like, contrast that with the Utah defense, who in the fourth quarter, like Junior Tafuna is out there just talking, just out there wagging his finger, wagging his finger at the offense and the crowd every time. Just like these guys are out here like it's the first quarter still. And they and that's what I mean when I say like Oklahoma State only got to 19 because Utah could afford to let them get to 19. Because if Utah still had 15 or whatever, like if Utah still had, or I guess 16, they had the energy to just turn that switch back on. They didn't need to. They went into prevent because they could. And anyway,
so Junior Tafuna, Keanu Tanavas on the defense side of the ball, and then you've got watch offensive linemen after big plays. Watch them. They are entertaining. They are living it up. That's been a fun little thing to watch this season.
And I'm fairly certain on that the game icing first down, I think Spencer Fano started doing snow angels. Like he was on, like he ended up like going through somebody and then like kind of falling down. He's on his back and he just goes spread eagle. I'm pretty sure he did a couple snow angels before getting up.
You know what?
To go into victory formation.
And you know who was leading that on the offense was Dorian Singer on the outside. Every time he got the ball, every time he made a play, he was chirping at dudes. Like he was telling them, he's like, you can't cover me. I'm wide open every play. Even when I catch the ball, y'all can't touch me. Oh, I loved it. I love seeing
it. And I love too like
attitude and that swagger from the offense.
It's even more fun to talk back to somebody. Like I think Dorian had like a 15-20 yard play where he got hit decently well on the sideline, and then the defender kind of starts running his mouth, and Dorian's like, "Dude, I just went for 20. What are you talking for? I don't care how hard you hit me. I just went for 20, man."
Yeah. I got 20 on you guys.
And then the next play they had the camera on Dorian's face, and he's lined up and he just looks at the corner across from him, and you can see his mouth just going even before the play. He's just still talking. I loved it.
Dude, so this is interesting, right? Dorian has come to life the last two games. I think what did he end up with last week? 66 yards, I think, on something like that, and then 95 yards yesterday. He's bringing that swagger, man. He's bringing that confidence, that swagger to that passing attack. He's gonna have his way. Like, it's truly refreshing to see that in a Utah offense. I can't remember the last time we had a receiver like this. Darren Carrington, Britton Covey, maybe, but he didn't. Covey didn't have that.
Yeah. Britton Covey seemed more like he was proselytizing out there. Like it was more like he was out there like, hey, we're all friends. Like isn't this fun? Aren't we all having such a good time?
Was it USC flex or was
ASU?
it Washington State?
It was ASU.
Oh, I thought
it was ASU.
Anyway, but like,
yeah.
But Dorian Singer, he's out there, and like he's not trying to be friendly. He's telling you what he thinks,
exactly
what he thinks you are compared to what he is.
The best thing about him too is like, and I think we talked about this last week or the week before. I think it was last week. He catches it, and he's not looking to like, hop out of bounds or like, get the first down. Like he catches it
yeah.
and he gets foot in the ground and he tries to go forward. Like I think
Yeah.
one play he ended up like 10 yards past where he got hit. I mean, sure, the guy was like kind of pulling him that way, but he was like, you force that. Like the guy's not going to start trying to tackle you backwards, like down the field for the other team. Like Dorian forced him to do that. And because he gets his foot in the ground, he catches it, gets his foot in the ground, he tries to fight for more yards. I love that about him. Like, again, like you said, how long has it been since we had a receiver who did that? I can't even remember one.
Well, and just the balance, the footwork, everything from him. He had one play where he had to go up and get it on that crossing route and comes down kind of on an awkward on the wrong foot and just makes a play that's actually very difficult in terms of changing direction while you're in the air, landing kind of awkwardly on the wrong foot, and then still being able to kind of pick up speed again and go upfield. Made that look easy. Picks up a first down. And like it looks like the kind of play where you would expect a guy to go up, catch the ball, stumble, fall
like
down,
come down, gather himself, regain his balance, whatever. But like, yeah, like that's what I mean is like it's seamless with him where he can go up, contort his body, come down, and he's back running, picking up yardage after the catch. Like it's so seamless with him, and that's truly refreshing. He ended up with 48 yards after the catch yesterday. 48 yards on 95 total yards. So some of that he's just running free, but not as much as you'd think. I don't have yards after contact for him, but like you said, Tyson, he was fighting on a couple of those catches through guys, like leaning through guys to fall forward for extra yards. And that's been consistent with him this week, last week. He's definitely the type that's trying to gain as much yardage as possible, regardless of how he has to do it. And that's refreshing to see as well. What's interesting, so Tyson or Cam, you mentioned, you brought up the running game and Mekhi's totals. Ollie Gordon finished with 42 yards, 40 of which came after contact. That is
that good?
Tremendous job. That's good. Yes, that's a good thing. You're giving
is
up
that what you want to
yards
see? Is that
before
what you want to see
contact
from your offense? Is that what you want to see? Is your starting running back can't get past the line of scrimmage without somebody mugging him?
Like, just a remarkable job. And you contrast that to what Mekhi got, and he's still obviously the big gain, broke a handful of tackles. He still ended up with 142 yards after contact on 186 yards total, but on 26 carries, that's a little just shy of 2 yards before contact, which speaks to, the push, the movement that Utah was getting up front. But 142 yards after contact for Mekhi, that speaks to a lot of things.
Well,
toughness and then the explosiveness.
Well, and they were coming in the first half too. Like the Oklahoma State defense was not letting Wilson sit back and throw. They were bringing dudes, and so and when Utah was insisting on running in a couple of places, like they were bringing guys, and Utah still just picked up yards after contact. Still got 6, 7, 8, 10 yards on these plays where Oklahoma State's bringing 7 defenders.
Okay, Cam, and you talked about this a second ago. Like the big thing, Ollie's got to get those yards, but he's getting hit 2 yards before contact, but he's getting hit like wrapped up and like breaking out of tackles. Mekhi is getting glanced more because, like you said, like these guys have to go around Spencer Fano and Michael Mokafisi. They're not getting clean hits on Mekhi, so I'm not saying he had the easier job, but I mean, he kind of did because he made the most of it. Like he wasn't getting guys that are just coming straight at him and making good contact with him. He's able.
Mekhi didn't have to play against Utah. It was his benefit.
Yeah, he was able just to, he could get stiff arms on guys because he has, they're off balance, they're trying to go around people, and he has the leverage against those guys to get past them.
Yeah, the difference here. So, where you've got 3 guys, Togi, Ikamp, and Mokafisi, where they're driving defensive tackles 2 to 3 yards, backwards. Like, go back, watch it, 2 to 3 yards backwards. And, linebackers are able to sneak through and get to Mekhi. But contrast that to what Utah was doing with Junior Tafuna, Keanu Tanavasa, Van. You watch that Okie State offensive line, they're getting reset 1 yard, 2 yards sometimes behind the line of scrimmage. And that is just a world of difference. So Utah, they didn't get a lot of tackles for loss in this game, but they ended up with, I think, 17 tackles, which count for stops. So zero. So not a tackle for loss, but a tackle for 0 to 2 yards. And that's you're keeping offenses behind the chains when you get a stop. So that's the big key is Utah kept Gordon in check and kept that offense behind the chains where they could kind of make them, one-dimensional, which is just, that's the formula for Utah.
They got a guy benched who threw 5 touchdowns last week.
How surprised were you to see that? Were you guys surprised?
I didn't really get it. Yeah, it was like, it didn't really make sense to me because and I saw Oklahoma State fans complaining and stuff about this too. And maybe it's because I've just watched too much Utah football that I'm just like, this is just what Utah does.
This is just what they do.
But they were all complaining about like, yeah, this guy's a bum. He can't. And I'm just like, listen, he's a bum, but it's not his fault. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like there's nobody, there's nowhere to go. This is what Utah does to
seen ghosts
to decent quarterbacks. Like you've got to be a really good quarterback to not have a bad day against Utah. And I don't know, Alan Bowman. That's just not you. I'm sorry.
That's kind of the point here too. Is like don't take this defense for granted just because we've become accustomed to seeing this effect that they have on opposing offenses where they just make teams incredibly inefficient. Like you've got to work for every yard, for every point against Utah. And it's, unless you're just supremely talented, like some of these teams that they faced over the years have been, you've got to work for these points. And that's what Utah did yesterday was they just made it difficult, made them inefficient. And that was through a mixture of, different coverages, a lot of physicality, a lot of man coverage. They essentially said, hey, Alan Bowman beat us over the top because we don't think you can. Luck. Like, good luck.
Ask, starting NFL quarterback and Heisman winner Jaden Daniels how Utah football does when they've decided they don't want a quarterback to have a good day.
Yeah.
Like when they decide it's your turn to have a bad day, you're going to have a bad day. There's no way around it. Like they'll, even if it's just like, listen, someone else might have a good day. That's fine, but not you.
Not you. Today ain't your day.
For the record, nobody on Arizona State had a very good day that night.
No.
But particularly Jaden Daniels. Nothing will be better than the media days after that when he asked about like, who's your least favorite team to play? And he was just like, bro, Utah.
Yeah. Caleb Williams sigh and head and just the ducking of the head every time Utah's brought up. Just, like that's what that's speaking to, man. They just make your life miserable. It's incredible. So Utah gets the win again, 22-19. Fellas, what have we learned, about Utah, about where they're at? What did we learn from this game? What can we take away from this game moving forward?
I'll tell you, my big takeaway is something we already touched on a lot, and I'm glad we got to it. I'm glad it was as obvious as it was to me. And it is that this Utah team knows that they are better than you. This offense and this defense, it took the offense it took them a little bit, it took them some time to hit their groove. But they've got a confidence and a swagger, even with a true freshman quarterback playing, that we have not seen a lot from this offense. And like you've seen it from players, you've seen it from guys, you've seen Cam Rising play the way he plays and how that elevates this team, but you haven't seen other guys do the kind of things that are out here just saying, I'm better than you, and I know that I'm better than you. You saw, again, Dorian Singer out here just clowning on DBs after he makes plays. You see Brant Keithy just like casually walking into the end zone because he's just like, what are you going to do? Tackle me? Get off your ass and try and tackle me.
I wish you would have turned around.
Oh, that was so cold.
That was
man.
cold.
That was
Ice
so
cold.
cold.
And then you've
Just
got the
unreal.
defense doing defense things, but wagging their finger at the offense and the fans and just telling them, like, we know who's leading this conference. We heard you saying we were physical enough, and we know that you were wrong. And man, I like watching that team just dominate on both sides and just absolutely, again, with a true freshman quarterback who played very well, with a freshman asterisk on it. He still made some
Yeah.
mistakes. He still could have played a lot better. He left
Yep.
at least 2 touchdowns on the board in a couple of
Yes.
different ways. And so
Yep.
like even with that surprise happening 20 minutes before game time, because everyone thought Cam was starting, including Isaac Wilson, before the game, well, I should say, depending on how much before the game everyone thought Cam Rising was starting.
Right.
That went back and forth, as is tradition. But once they settled in, once they got a small lead, they knew that game, the players on the field knew they had already won that game in the second quarter. They knew it was just a matter of time. We just needed the clock to run out. And that's something that, again, we've seen a little bit from the defense. I haven't seen the type of like just unadulterated cockiness from the defense that we saw, and again from the offense, from the skill players, and I just absolutely loved it.
Tyson, what was your big takeaway?
Big takeaway for me was, I know, like, I love it and hate it, and I know a lot of Utah fans love it and hate it, but watching Utah introduce not only the Big 12 but a Big 12 favorite to the Utah special of, we are just going to bully the hell out of you, and we're going to
I
get
thought you were
lead.
talking about the delay of game penalty.
I did too.
Oh,
I thought you were talking about the late substitution.
That too. It was like, oh, you want to run a guy on late for a punt? Sorry, back up 5 yards.
There's nothing better than watching the guy
too,
jog on, and it's like there's 11 seconds left on the clock, and you're like, he still has 40 yards to go before he taps the guy to say, you're
And
coming
then he's
out.
got
And
another
then that
40
guy's gonna
yards.
jog his ass. He's gonna Brant Keithy's walk his ass off the field.
Samote Peppa is gonna make it to the sideline in 11.
It's
Okay.
so funny. And especially too, because as I understand it, the rule is you just have to be off the field in a reasonable time, which like means nothing. What is
It means
reasonable?
don't walk. It means
What is
don't walk.
reasonable for Samote Peppa to get off the field? Like, you see that guy doing anything other than walk, and you're just like, that's fine.
He's trying. Yes, he's trying.
That might be as fast as he can go. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I love
But
okay.
Tyson,
So good.
I do love
Tyson,
that.
continue.
I do love that. But I was just gonna go with the overall Utah special of, we are gonna get a lead and we're just gonna bully the ever-loving hell out of you on both sides of the ball in the trenches. Utah had like 42 and a half minutes of possession. Is
Unreal.
absurd.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, it's not like they were just spamming inside zone, which for, a little bit of times they did, but I mean, they were still letting Isaac sling it a little bit. Like, it's not like they just we're going to hand it off to our elite running back and just let him get, 250 yards on the ground because you can't stop it. Like, they were still opening up the playbook a little bit, but like the perfect wit game of, we control the clock for 40 plus minutes. You go 3 and out 7 times. So you're not getting the ball back. We're going to let our defense have a ton of time on the sideline to recover, because we're just going to have 6, 7, 8-minute drives that end in at least 3 points. Like, just being able to introduce the Big 12 to that, when they're so used to like these 52 to 45 games, like all of these like throwing offenses, like,
It's
nah,
the formula.
you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that with us.
It's not the blueprint, it's the red print for Utah. Like, that's
Exactly.
This is what it is, man. This is how we play ball. Like, when we're clicking and firing all cylinders, it's going to be a little bit more explosive. We're going to be a little more, razzle dazzle maybe, but this is us. This is Utah. This is Utah ball. And here's your intro to it.
Exactly. Like, I just love, that was my favorite thing at the end of the game. Like, you guys gotta, I think somebody on Discord or Twitter said something about that Utah football is like a boa constrictor.
Yeah.
that just wraps you up and just slowly squeezes the life out of you. Like and there's nothing you can do about it. And you saw that
It's
against.
that scene from Austin Powers when he's in the steamroller and he's like, "Move, yeah." It's inevitable. It's just like, listen, if you're gonna stand there, I'm gonna run your ass over. You're gonna hate it the whole time.
Plenty of opportunities to move, but you're not gonna move, and we're just gonna keep going.
Oh, that was incredible. Oh yeah. Man, love it. And that's what we saw, man. I think my biggest takeaway, Isaac Wilson, true freshman, obviously finding out minutes, however many minutes before the game that he was going to start. I think it says a lot of things about him, about coaches and their belief in him, and about the confidence that the team now has in him. And I think that's rather significant, right? That you could feel like it. So much has been put on the shoulders of Cam Rising and what he means to this team and what he helps this team become and all of that stuff. And it's all valid, right? Like Cam is a vital piece to the puzzle for Utah this season. You could feel it when he got injured against Penn State. Just the deflated. Baylor, again, 2 weeks ago, you could feel it deflated, right? Just all the air in the stadium gone, poof, disappeared. And you could feel it. I think with part of that was just the uncertainty around Isaac Wilson. And can he perform at this level? Can he help us win games? And to put the ball in his hands in arguably the most difficult game on your schedule, on the road, in a hostile environment, and to perform the way that he did with all the context that we know about this whole situation, I think it says a lot about him and, again, the belief that his teammates have in him and the confidence and trust that coaches have in him. It's been a remarkable shift, particularly in regards to the coaching staff, because, it used to be, what was it last year and the year before that? Just take care of the ball. Don't turn it over. Hand it off. Do that. But they are allowing Isaac Wilson to throw the ball, to make plays, to make mistakes and still go back to him and still allow him to make throws and grow through those mistakes. And so you see it in each game this season. There's been improvement. Kyle Whittingham said that he believes ESPN's QBR is the best metric, best measurement and analysis rating that he puts stock into. And you can see it from game one. He started with a 14.8 QBR rating against Baylor, 29.7. You think last week against Utah State, he looked pretty good. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 55.4 rating. This game against Oklahoma State, 86.2 QBR rating. He added a lot of value to Utah's possessions with his legs. He converted, I think, a total of 10 first downs, 7 through the air, 3 with his legs. And that's the sort of stuff, right? Just make a play and get the job done. Take care of the ball as best you can. And those 2 interceptions, explainable. Yeah. That one to Dijon Stanley,
just split second too late.
Well, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this. So the play before, they were flagged for a penalty, right? Illegal formation or something like that. So they snapped it, they ran the play, and then the flag comes in, and they got to move back.
Yeah,
they had to move back 5 yards. What did they do on that play? The Dijon Stanley wheel route. They went back to it on the very next play, and I think that's a coaching mistake, right? Because Oklahoma State, when you go back, you watch it. The first time they tried it, they didn't have a safety over the top on that right side. That next play, they had a safety in that quarter from the hash to the sideline, just kind of patrolling. And so they saw that Dijon Stanley wheel route, and they made a call adjustment. And so, Utah's got to be mindful of that. Isaac on that same play also needs to be honest with what he's seeing. He's got to see the safety. He wasn't hiding. He was in that quarter of the field, and he's got to be honest with himself and, not be greedy. He made a great throw. Like that safety isn't there, Dijon is
That's
running
6.
It's just, it was a ideal. I was shocked that the guy intercepted it. I thought Dijon had it. But Money Parks on the other side of the field was streaking down the field wide open after he broke some ankles of his own with no safety over the top. And that's what I mean. Isaac has to, get that call and be honest with himself when he's looking and IDing the defense. He's got to be able to recognize, okay, we got a safety over the top here. Money could have an opportunity. And that's just inexperience, right? That's going to come with time and repetition and understanding and confidence and understanding of what he's doing. So that's my biggest takeaway from the game.
That game's going to go along. Like, we're going to look back at this last game when Isaac's the main guy next year and the year after that. We'll look back at this game and be like, that's a big reason why he's going to be as good as he will be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there.
2 starts, both on the road, back to back. And he didn't know he was going to be starting one of them, the harder one. I think that I can't get something out of my head that he said after the Baylor game when he went in there and really looked kind of frankly disappointing. He said, I need to be ready. He put it squarely on himself. He put it pretty bluntly, and we've seen that again, like getting the nod a few minutes before the game and winning the way he did against it. We saw something similar 2 years ago when this happened with Cam. I forget what it was that was bothering Cam, probably some kind of knee flare up, but it was before the big injury when Bryson Barnes came in, right? But like for the Washington State game, you remember Petro lost his mind about the gamesmanship from Whittingham or whatever. But like 20 or so minutes before the game, Cam went to coaches, which is like, hey, not feeling it today. Bryson's going to have to be the guy. Bryson comes in, wins a game on the road at Washington State. This game, Isaac just did the same thing, but these are not the same situation.
Not at all.
All due respect to Wazoo and their fans and their home environment on a Thursday night, or maybe it was Friday night, can't recall. That is not Oklahoma State. That's 15 ranked in Stillwater, house rocking, 100-degree heat, true freshman. Like Isaac Wilson came in and played a better game than I think Bryson did that game, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely did.
And against a much better team in a much harder environment. I can't put like his self-awareness after the Baylor game and his immediate response to that is really impressive.
Absolutely. And again, like Steve said, the fact that the coaches have that trust in him, I mean, even like after throwing an interception, like to still let him run the offense and not just be like, oh, this didn't work, hand the ball off, 50 times for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Like the trust that the coaches have in him to continue to still run the same offense, to let him still throw it is I think speaks a lot to Isaac's skill level and where he's at as a player right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, again, statement made by Utah, getting the win with that true freshman leading the way, doing it without their star quarterback, I think not only says a lot about the team itself, but it says a lot about where they're at in the Big 12. And I think, there was a lot of chirping prior to the season, a lot of talking, a certain kind of talking, right? And it got quiet pretty quick this weekend. So I think,
did it.
Yeah,
there was a couple of fan bases who were doing it, and both of them got pretty quiet after this weekend. Frankly, not a great weekend for the self-proclaimed top of the Big 12, not named Utah.
Nope.
The Isaac Wilson thing, I will say, you mentioned without their star quarterback, as good as this Utah offense, not that the offense has looked great. I think it's looked good considering it's being led by a true freshman quarterback. It's again kind of hard to overstate how much of a difference Cam can make for this team when he is healthy. Cam Rising, it's a small sample. He hasn't played a ton yet this season. He leads the country in rating as a passer.
Hey, how about that?
And so again, that's another gear this offense can hit when he's healthy, when he's back, and when. But sorry, go on, Steve.
No. I was just gonna say that's another thing is like this is still we still haven't seen this team put together a great effort for a full 4 quarters, both sides of the ball, right? Like they went into Oklahoma State and I don't know. I don't know how to assess how they performed in terms of a grade or what level or how much more what level they can reach, but they are nowhere near their best football. And I think that is super exciting. You just got the win, the most difficult game on your schedule. You got the win and you're nowhere near playing your best.
And as well
exciting.
As the defense played, they're missing 2 of their 5 best players. Kearney Reed and Connor O'Toole didn't play a single down. Kearney Reed is maybe as important to this defense as Lander Barton is. He's so good at linebacker. NFL scouts absolutely love Kearney Reed at linebacker. It's so hard to lose that guy, not to mention maybe arguably your best defensive end. But like you've got 3 now who are so good that and Van is just looking absolutely incredible. Healthy Van.
Oh man,
I'm so happy for him.
But like to lose Connor O'Toole and Kearney Reed for that game and to have the dominant defensive performance you did, like the defense is even hamstringed with injuries right now. Yeah. They lost maybe their best corner 15 minutes into their first game. Like it's
don't forget about Kenan Johnson either, man. Yeah.
I mean, I think I completely agree with you, Steve. Like it's easy to be like, yeah, we're really seeing like the defense is in its A+ form, and we just need the offense to get healthy, and like we need Cam to get healthy so this offense can really take off. We haven't even seen the defense in its pure form. Like we might have for a portion of that Baylor game, but like we saw what they can do with their depth in this Oklahoma State game, but they can do more. They're leaving things on the table and doing this. There is
super impressive. And
like I said, this Utah team is better than you, and they know it, man.
Yeah, I love that. And so shout out to Scooby Davis and Cam Calhoun, who have stepped up and they've played great ball over the last 2 weeks. Man, Scooby may have had the hit of the game on that. There was I think it was like a slant route or something. Ball was high. He was on top of the receiver, slammed him down to the ground. Great hit, had the interception, caught it like a receiver, ran the route for him. He has the strides he's made in the short amount of time that he has. Impressive job from him. Cam Calhoun has looked awesome. Still another level that these guys can get to. Smith Snowden, go up with 2 hands, come down with it, and you're taking it the other way for 6, man.
And Gilman, how good has Gilman been coming in as well? Like absolutely. Like again, the interception he had, just jumping that route from behind the receiver, going to that opposite side, like just beating the receiver to the point of the ball. Like absolutely phenomenal. Like way the DB group has stepped up with Kenan Johnson's absence.
One of my favorite plays too was Calhoun. I'm pretty sure it was a 3rd down, like a 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 7, and he was in press. I'm pretty sure he was in press. He put the receiver 3 yards out of bounds.
Yeah,
just legally, 3 yards out of bounds.
Bowman throws the ball down, and you're like, "There's nobody in bounds on that side of the field."
Yeah,
like that's the type of corner Utah wants, is a guy who can do stuff like that. And that was one of my favorite plays of the game. Even if it's not like an interception or a big hit,
sure.
But that's huge. So you have a guy who again legally put a guy 3 yards out of bounds on a 3rd down where they're going to try and go over the top on you or try and catch you sleeping. Like that's huge to have a guy who can do that.
Yep. last thing, couple things, maybe just the last thing. But going back to Isaac Wilson, the passing game, and the defense that he faced on Saturday. So Oklahoma State coming into this, about a 28% blitz rate. So they're blitzing on 1 every 3 plays, 1 every 4 plays, somewhere in there. 62% blitz rate on Saturday for Isaac Wilson. And to handle that, right? And this is a thing that he's got to get better with, because I think at least one of the sacks that he had when Utah marched down the field, and then he took the big sack that I think they said they still got the field goal, if I remember correct.
Yeah, they did.
They weren't knocked out of field goal range, but he takes the sack. He's got it. That's throwing hot, understanding his pass protection, understanding that, hey, we've got 6 guys blocking. If a 7th comes, I've got to get this ball out quick. He had money, and I think he even saw him. I don't know why he didn't get the ball off, but that's a key for him, is learning to throw hot, learning to identify where the pressure's coming, and getting the ball out in a quick, timely manner. And that's just something that'll come with practice and repetition and all that.
The interception that he threw, the second one, one of those things too, where it's like knowing where you can miss on a play.
You got to throw long.
There's nobody behind him. Just throw it and see if he can go get it. Just like, you've got pressure coming, just heave that thing as far as you can and see if Keith can get underneath it. Like you said, little things like that. Just knowing where you can miss.
Yep. I think that you could say that on a couple other throws. So he had another near interception on a throw to Dorian, where if he puts it in the back corner of the end zone, it's probably 6. And he had another one, I think it was either Money or somebody, but yeah,
it looks just a little bit like he hasn't quite caught up to the speed of the guys he's throwing to. Like it throws like that, where it's like he throws downfield and it's just like, dude, you can throw this 10 more yards. They're going to get to it. Like, you don't need to, you're not throwing to high school players anymore. Like, these guys will go get that ball, just air it out and throw it as far as you can.
That'll come again. Like you said, it's good. It's games like this where he's going to learn that. He's going to learn that he can throw it that far, that he can, put a little bit more behind it or put a little bit more in front of a guy, because they're going to get to it.
And hey, if he gets 70-80% of the practice reps, in a week, he probably also makes that.
I wouldn't count on it.
Throws. Just throwing that out there. It's an idea, but hey, you continue to do you up there.
Listen, my big takeaway from this week is that practice reps don't matter.
They don't matter.
Don't need them to
they aren't real. They aren't real. What are we wasting our time about?
You're talking about practice reps?
Oh, practice? We talk about practice. Golly, we've wasted so much time on practice. Unreal. All right, so Utah, they get the win. Obviously, with the results of the other games this weekend, Utah is clearly in the driver's seat. It's been a lot of fun to kind of look at, future playoff predictions. Utah's pegged number 4 in the majority of those predictions, and it's really cool to see that. So, as long as Utah
before things wrap up, or before things get. Things keep looking at Utah's next 6 games on the schedule. There's not a lot there. I'll be honest. There's
take care of business this weekend. Get to the bye.
Man, if Cam comes healthy out of that bye week,
oh man,
oh boy,
yeah,
oh boy.
So I think that's another big thing, right? Is the fact that Utah is very clearly in the driver's seat in the conference, and with playoff rules and implications and what it all means now. With this 12-team playoff, big deal for Utah to continue to take care of business. And so I think you're seeing that, right? It all speaks to that. It all speaks to taking care of business for this team, right? Playing with that swagger, that confidence, that cockiness even that you said, Cam, where they just know they're better, right? They know that they've got to take care of business because they have their eye on that prize, the Big 12 Conference, winning that and getting to the playoff and what that could mean for them this season. So a lot of fun, man, a lot of fun. You guys want to talk about the rest of the Big 12?
I don't know. We're only 52 minutes in. Do you think we should have a second segment?
We can run through it real quick. Just real quick. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time. What in the hell is going on down there at Provo, man? 38-9, knocking off Kansas
Jeez.
State. Holy moly. Listen, respect for the win.
Absolutely. That's a tough place to play at night like that.
It is.
Like when when it's a whiteout like that too, like that they were fired up in that stadium, and like they did not do anything to get that crowd out of the game. They made about every mistake you can make. If you go look at that box score, K-State had significantly more yards than BYU. They just couldn't finish drives. They ended in turnovers. They just kind of stalled out and had to settle for field goals. And then the punt return that's going crazy on Twitter and stuff too. It's one of those things where you're just like, incredible play by BYU. Can't take away from I don't know the kid's name, like who made that long run, and like incredible job and effort by them. But it's one of those things when you're watching as in this case, Kansas State apologist watching that game, and you're just like, what are you doing? What is this punt coverage? How do you let this happen?
In the world, man?
Like, how do you have two guys in each other's pockets, like following this ball down the sideline? Like it's just one of those things where you're just like, yeah, I mean, that's how you lose a game on the road, doing that type of stuff. Lose a turnover battle -3. That's how you lose a game on the road by 29
That's
points.
the thing. Yep. They outgained BYU by 126 yards total, but the 3 turnovers. And the turnovers were like incredible. They were just game-changing turnovers that led to immediate points. It's just Kansas State, like they did not show up. Super disappointed in how Kansas State looked. After being down there at Lavelle Edwards Stadium for that 2021 BYU Utah game and feeling that atmosphere, being in that atmosphere, it's a tough place to play, and that's going to be a factor, for those guys in all of these games. But can they sustain it over a season? We'll see. They're good for one of those games, at least one of those games every year.
Always are.
Yeah. I mean, the lines came out today, and Baylor's favored by 2 against BYU.
Wild.
Baylor, who, again, if we can jump to another game, if you watch any of that Colorado and Baylor game, like what fun game all the way through, like one of those, like I think Colorado, like
face palm Tyson. Yeah, oh yeah.
The Colorado looked a lot better, like week to week. I think, I think that it was really fun to watch them kind of almost lay an egg against North Dakota State, get just absolutely obliterated by Nebraska. They beat the crap out of Colorado State. Colorado State's not a great football team, but Colorado went in and took care of business. But like Baylor should be able to beat Colorado, like even on the road. And like at least the Colorado that we've wanted Colorado to be. And they should have beaten Colorado.
Should have. Yes.
They should have. But how do you listen? There's nothing scarier as a defense than having to defend a Hail Mary, right? There's everything to lose and very little to gain in the sense of like nobody expects a Hail Mary to happen. Almost giving up the first one and then giving up the second one. Just so bad.
Like Dave Aranda is supposed to be some like defensive savant. How are you running normal defense? Like, and having like what? I think they had one guy deep and he was sitting in the back of the end zone. First of all, what are you doing in the back? They're on like their own 50. They're not going to throw it to the back of the end zone. I should have got a cannon for an arm, but he ain't getting it that far.
Did you hear what he said in the post game too? That he was just like, yeah, there's a name for that Hail Mary defense play. We call it Victory Cigar.
Oh, and it's
everyone's just like, why would you say that? like
wait,
do you understand?
Player or Aranda?
Aranda said it.
Oh God!
People are just like, do you understand what just happened? Did you see? Like, you can't.
No.
There's one
Hail
Mary
this.
defense that should ever be.
It's called
played.
Victory Cigar.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sorry for implying that he showed any emotion.
Yeah, come on.
I didn't intend to misquote him.
We call that
but
play victory cigar.
it's just one of those things where you're just like, I understand that you're trying to be like pretty ironic, am I right? But it's just like, this is serious.
Like
Your job is on the line, bro.
Yeah, you're gonna get fired like tomorrow.
there's one defense they should have run, and it is you rush 3, maybe even 2. You put 5 or 6
because you'll probably
guys,
get pressure.
yeah, you put 5 or 6 guys, sit them on the goal line, and then have anybody else kind of underneath to make sure they don't try and run some weird underneath and then start lateraling it thing. What are you doing putting somebody in the back of the end zone? And 2, why are you running normal defense? Why do you have your guys 10 yards off the receivers on a play where they have to throw it to the end zone? What are you doing?
Just
unserious
malpractice from a historically good defensive coach. It's like just brainworms situation. Absolutely.
He had the lighter in his hand, man. He was ready to go. He was ready to light that thing.
So bad.
So bad. I just couldn't believe the quote after just we've not funny you guys mentioned the Hail Mary play that failed twice. Do you know what we call that play? Do you guys happen to know the name of that play? What we call it? It's called Victory Cigar. Everyone in the room is just like, yeah, fire this guy.
Yeah. See you later, dude.
Tarmac him.
Oh man. Yeah. They so Cam, you mentioned this. They host BYU on Saturday. Colorado going to Central Florida on Saturday. That'll be a fun one. Very black and gold game, unless UCF pulls out something wild. But that'll be a fun one.
I have changed my mind on Colorado, by the way. I have decided the much funnier outcome is for them to actually be good and to just be like, the Big 12 brought in all these Pac-12 teams, and even the shitty one is just absolutely beating this conference. Like the Big 12 was just like, all right, we'll rescue all these like Pac-12 and independent, these West Coast teams. We'll see what they're all about. It's just like, oh no. Oh no.
Oh man. Just incredible. Man, what a freaking game last night, that Baylor Colorado game. Unreal. Speaking of drunk games, TCU SMU.
God.
I think TCU accounted for 9 touchdowns. 3 of them went for SMU. So not great. Sonny Dykes got ejected from this game, which
and then
I mean,
like hyping up the
early
SMU like crowd.
Yeah, it was so dumb. What are you doing, bro? And like we're familiar with Sonny Dykes, right? We've seen him on the Utah sidelines. Understandable. He's a bit whiny with things, but to get 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties and get ejected, I can't remember the last time I've seen a coach get ejected. That's crazy.
That guy won a playoff game. That guy was in the national championship game like 2 years ago. What happened?
Bro, he has fallen off.
Max Duggan better own half of the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
This TCU is, oh man, brutal loss for TCU. West Virginia getting the win, coming from behind, 11-point deficit with I think 3:30 to go. I'm sorry.
Kansas sucks.
Kansas is what I'm dubbing now. Kansas, man.
I was betrayed by preseason models and projections. They were like, hey, listen, look how easy their schedule is, and they forgot to factor in that Kansas still was Kansas.
Kansas is Kansas.
Kansas is Kansas, man.
Even with Lance Leipold, and being a D3 guy, knowing where he came from at Wisconsin Whitewater, and he's been successful everywhere he went. And then after last year, I'm like, all right, yeah, he's turning Kansas around. No, Kansas is still Kansas. It sucks as a D3 guy to see a legend, basically a legendary D3 coach go through that. Have
You
to
can
deal with Kansas.
Tough.
You can only fight the Tide for so long, you know. Like eventually, the Tide always wins, and in Kansas is Kansas.
Tough, man. It's tough. And then what else we got? Couple snoozers. Iowa State.
Oh man, Houston is so bad.
God.
So bad.
I can't
34
like
to
Cincinnati
0
is not
loss
very
to
good.
Cincy. No,
Cincy is not very good, and Houston is just so bad.
brutal loss for Houston. Yeah, that was the Big 12 slate. So clearly, in the Big 12, it's Utah 1. Would you put UCF or BYU 2 in a power ranking?
Iowa State.
Iowa State. Fair.
Maybe
To
Iowa
consider
State.
them.
I still feel like there's I mean, we've got to see them play somebody. I mean, they played Iowa, I guess, but like I don't know if Iowa's any good this year either. And like knowing that game, it's game's always close. It kind of like, or at least historically, in last like recent history, I should say, is always close. I'd probably put Iowa State too. Honestly, I might leave Oklahoma State too. Like there's not a lot of reason to move them down in my mind. Like there's not a lot of people competing for that top 3 spot. You know what I mean?
No. I just, I think you guys are right. I think Iowa State or Oklahoma State, they're number 2 in the AP top 12 in terms of the Big 12 teams. I think it's Utah, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State. I think
Did Kansas State stay in the poll this week? I didn't see it.
Yeah.
23. They dropped 10
BYU
spots.
is what, 20?
22.
22. Yeah. Also, this is my gripe with the AP poll. And sorry, Furlong, if you're listening to this. I know you're fighting the good fight out there. And I know there's only so much you can do. And I know that is he not anymore?
No, he does it. He's not fighting the good fight. Yeah. He gave up.
What a coward.
Did you guys how do you guys feel about taking your shoes off in a press box and working without your shoes?
What?
I was just curious.
Did Oklahoma State do? Oh my God.
No.
Did Furlong do that?
Okay.
I'm not naming names. But it's just a question I'm throwing out there.
Okay, he's actually fighting the bad fight, is what I'm hearing.
Oh no, I'm not. No,
Josh,
I'm not naming names.
Come on. What are we doing?
Okay, all right. So I got to explain. So Oklahoma State, they have their press box, 3 levels. You come in from behind, and it's there's a couple steps. It's on a platform essentially. That back row. There's no wall. You see everybody. And I see Furlong, and he's got his shoes off, and he's just kind of kicking his feet with the socks on, sitting in his chair. just
Josh,
as cool
do you
as can
take your
be.
shoes off on an airplane too?
Is there a beach in the press box that I wasn't aware of?
Nope. And just considering the heat that we were in, and he walked, so the walk from the parking lot to the stadium is long. Like it's a good walk. But he actually he went to Eskimo Joe's, which is probably a half mile from the stadium. So in total, before he got to the stadium, he probably walked in 92-degree weather, probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles. With a backpack on, he's probably sweating, and here he is in the press box with his shoes off.
Did
allegedly,
Eskimo Joe take
because I'm
them
not
from him,
naming
or
names.
what?
Allegedly.
No. I got photo proof too. I'm not naming names. I'm
All right,
sorry.
well, in that case, I have 2 gripes with the AP poll. One of them is an alarming number of pollsters aren't wearing shoes in the press box. And the second is that, like, how could you watch that K-State and BYU game? Like, and so many things that led to that 38-9 score. But how do you watch that game and be like, these 2 teams are the same? 22 and 23.
Dude.
Just put them right next to each other.
Tough. That's tough,
God.
man.
Speaking
tough.
of AP voters and Pac-12 power rankings. Did you guys see Wilner's Pac-12
No,
power
what did he
rankings on
what
Twitter?
did he
Is
do?
Big 12, you mean?
Yeah, or Big 12. Big 12 power rankings. Number 1, Utah. Number 2, vacant. Number 3, probably still vacant. 4, maybe Iowa State. 5, it's up to you. And then he followed that up with bottom of the Big 12 standings. 13, KSU's punt coverage. 14, Baylor's prevent defense. 15, Dykes' temper. 16, Houston.
Oh,
Milner was
Houston.
cooking.
Houston catching strays. I love it.
No, bro, that's a punch to the face. That's not a stray, man. That's
I don't know.
That's a straight.
I don't know.
That's a
Wilder's
knockout
just
punch.
like, all right, listen, let's talk about the worst things that happened to the Big 12. And
going in on
anyway,
Houston.
Houston's worse than any of those.
Shout out to John Wilner, though, ranking Utah number 4 in his poll.
Love it.
Love it. Shout out to John. Was always one of the good ones. Always.
You know what? He is truly
But
one
he-
of the
he
good
came along. He
pollsters
came-
in the sense
Came
of
around.
the poll encourages voters to change their votes dramatically week to week based on what they saw and like not to anchor teams in a position based on where they
Mhm.
were before. And like shout out to John Wilner for doing that. Like for taking
Yeah.
that maybe sometimes too extremely, but like same thing. I'm looking at I don't know, for instance, Missouri. That's another one where you're like, listen, Vanderbilt is maybe better than they've been before. They
They're still
are
Vanderbilt.
they're right. They're still Vanderbilt. They're fun to watch. How do you have that game at home against Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
And you're just like, no, this team should stay in the top 10. Like this team deserves
Yeah.
to be in the top 10 after that game against Vanderbilt. It's just like, no, that didn't look like a top 10 team. Top 10 teams don't go to overtime and win by 3 against Vanderbilt. Like, I don't care if Diego Pavia is fun to watch. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and-
just that's
And you
it's
saw that with
maddening to
Georgia the
me.
week before. Yeah, you saw that the week before with Georgia dropping from number 1 to number 2 after, they struggle with Kentucky, right? And I think it's great that we get that. Great that they encourage that. But yeah, interesting. BYU 22, Kansas State 23. Kansas State, man, did not look great.
I guess
and
Missouri
it-
did
and-
fall to
and it's-
11, but like 2
Yeah.
spots. They fell 2 spots for like
4 spots. They were 7.
Were they
They fell
7?
4
I thought they
spots.
were 9.
No, they were 4. Yeah, it was 4 spots.
All right, maybe I'll shut up then.
Maybe 2. Somebody dropped 4. I thought it was. Anyways,
Oh, they did drop 4. You were right. I was wrong.
but Kansas State, getting back to that, what did we talk about all off season with Kansas State in the Discord? Avery Johnson.
Avery Johnson.
A lot of hype, a lot of love for Avery Johnson. But he had 467 passing yards, a couple interceptions, maybe a touchdown, throwing the ball, a lot of unknowns. And we are learning real quick that the hype was way too much for Avery Johnson. And, he's dynamic. He is certainly dynamic.
He's still going to be good.
He's going to be good. No doubt. No doubt. But I just think a lot of people crowned him a bit too early. And I think we're seeing that.
Well, and I think it's the kind of thing too where you're like, you want him to be this dual threat guy who can do everything on the ground and throw the ball. And it's just like, that's just not who Kansas State is. They're not gonna come out and score 45 points a game. Like it's like, if you want him to be a fantasy hero of like having 2-2 every game, like running and throwing, it's just like, well, Kansas State's just not going to score the ball that much. They need their defense to be good. And when their defense is really bad and their offense is also bad, like that's how you lose games in Provo on Saturday night. Like one of those groups has to be good, and the defense is the one that absolutely has to be good. And anyway, they're not unlike Utah in that way, in a lot of ways. But it's just like when the offense isn't working and the defense doesn't show up, it's just like just hanging up.
Tough to win
It's gonna be a
games
long
like
night.
that. It's tough to win games like that, man. Yeah. Well, cool. Fellas, any final thoughts before we put a bow on this one?
I don't think so.
I had one and I can't remember. So my final thought will be this. Who boy, when Cam is healthy, look out. Look out, Big 12.
Gonna be fun. Yep. Gonna be fun. Cam, come back. It'll be fun. And moving forward, right? how good does it feel to have Cam and now to have Isaac, 2 games under his belt, big win under his belt against Oklahoma State. The confidence that you can have in that quarterback room, it's night and day different from last season. And I think, regardless of all the injury stuff this past week and the PTSD that sparked with a lot of people, you can move forward knowing you've got 2 quarterbacks capable of leading you to big wins. And I think that's super exciting. So, cool. Well, fellas, appreciate you. This has been the Utah Blockcast. Signing off.